So England named their squad last night ahead of facing Wales in Cardiff this weekend, assuming the game does go ahead. A few tweaks to it, including the return of George Ford after a few minutes for sale on his return from that injury he suffered in the Premiership final last season. Charlie, what did you make of him? It's quite a small sample size, but he's straight back in the squad, isn't he?
A very small sample size. So he had a half in the Premiership Rugby Cup against Bristol, in which Sale got absolutely pumped. And then he came on yesterday with half an hour left. Sale had just conceded a try to have their lead reduced from 27-7 to 27-14, but he came in with Sale having been reduced from 14 men to 13 men. So essentially, what I'm saying is he came into utter bedlam basically, and he couldn't kind of get Sale over the line. But there were some nice touches. Topically, a few of them were little kicks. So nice little grab of it just on the edge of the 22 to earn a 5-metre scrum for Sale as James Ram carried the ball back over. Lovely restart to set up sort of the last gasp after Sale had gone behind, set up a last gasp go at the win, and then another cross-field grabber. Just really delicate touches that we all come to kind of expect from George Ford. Important probably to stress that Finn Smith picked up a dead leg, which might have kind of hurried his. Although we know that Steve Borthwick has been in dialogue with Ford, and we know that he's a big fan of Ford, particularly his ability to impart pressure and keep pressure on it. It's fantastic talking to Ford about the game. We always say this, and he's so articulate. And what he often says is that playing, and you never know whether he's having a little dig at other fly halves when he says this. So, again, wouldn't want to put words in his mouth, but he talks about the little moments that govern momentum swings in test matches. So when you find grass with a kick and a fullback has to get across, and therefore their clearance is pretty poor, and a team have got momentum on the kick return, those are the moments that he's a real master at, and I think England have really missed that.
It's a lovely boost for Sale, isn't it? I know Robert Dupree has been having a great season, but if you now have Ford available as well, they've got two incredible options there.
Dupree, really important to stress that. Dupree was really good at the weekend again.
Charles, in terms of what it means for the fly half situation, which seems to be perpetually complicated, how do you think this is going to play out in the long run? Are we going to have Ford and Farrell? Are we going to have one of Farrell, Ford and Smith? Are we going to have Smith? How is this going to work?
I mean, yeah, it does look very uncertain, doesn't it? And predicting the future in terms of the English midfield, well, you know, you'd be better off trying to predict what news story is going to come out of rugby next. I think you'd have better joy with that. What we can say, I think, for certain, is that it doesn't bode too well for Marcus Smith, and I think the pressure is on him now. You know, if he was dropped to the bench for the Italy match, and now George Ford has come straight back into that squad. Now, after, as Charlie said, how much rugby? An hour? Is that a total, the cumulative amount?
70 minutes, yeah, pretty much.
70 minutes of rugby. George Ford, in 8 months, George Ford is straight back in. So clearly, he is front and centre of Borthwick's plans and prep for England going forward in the match day 23, even if he's not starting. And you're not going to have Ford, Farrell and Smith all in a 23.
I think it's an Eddieism left over in my mind that certain players you just plug straight back in. It doesn't matter how long they've been out for. Is that one of Eddie's?
Yeah, and another one was you can only have 2 frontline fly halves or 2 frontline scrum halves, I forget, in a training squad because of rotations on training. That's another thing that kind of Borthwick just isn't kind of abiding by that, is he? Those theories are sort of gone, and he's got Ford in with Farrell and Smith, and we'll see who comes out on top. But I do think it'd be punchy for Ford to come straight back into a match day 23. I totally agree with Charles, though, that Marcus Smith is the most at risk there, if only because, and I know it won't be popular, but the Ford-Farrell axis is a potential live option when you've got those two in a 23. I don't think Smith's place in the World Cup 33 is at risk. I think you can fit all 3 of those guys in, especially given Farrell's ability to switch across there. But yeah, more midfield permutations. That's what we need.
One of them needs to work on covering fullback a bit. I think just
Ford
is another option.
This was an Eddieism, but Ford. We were talking at Franklin's Gardens about how Ford went to 9 in a game that Leicester won really comfortably over Northampton in the Borthwick era, and he basically terrorised Saints with about 3 box kicks in a row that were pinpoint, and Leicester worked their way up the pitch, and then he got a drop goal from a goal line dropout or a 22 dropout.
I was at that game, and he was mesmeric.
Yeah, I think Boyd,
absolutely mesmeric.
Somebody said that Chris Boyd sort of gave his post match and just went, "Yeah, I mean, well, we lost by 30 points, but they had George Ford, so what are you going to do?"
Some player. Morgs, you would have also seen Manu Tuilagi, who was lively but not in a good way.
Yeah, so I think he had 3 touches. He was pretty well contained with the first carry, and then his second carry he actually played a really delicate, really nice pass to Rob Dupree for a cross kick for Aaron Reed's try that got Sale going, and then his third touch, buffeted away Fraser Dingwall, and he had Finn Smith hanging off him, I think, and then just shot out an arm and copped Tommy Freeman one on the jaw, and it looked quite bad live. I think Claire Hodnett was the TMO and alerted to Ian Tempest, and everybody knew straight away, including Manu Tuilagi, who was grimacing straight away. He went across to Tommy Freeman as he went off the field to just check he was okay, which he was. It looked a little bit like somebody really striving to make a point, as Alex Sanderson had sort of foreshadowed in the week, saying that Tuilagi was simmering, and unfortunately saying that he was kind of, I'm going to have to have a word with him in case he does boil over and he hurts someone, which is very much words that precede unfortunate events. But I think we'll see a somewhere between a 2 and a 4 week ban, and I think that the indications were clear that Borthwick was looking beyond him anyway, and Ollie Lawrence's performance against Italy was in that sort of 13 attacking role. I know he's wearing 12, but he was with Farrell and Slade operating as those 2 distributors that England like, and that system of set plays that they use. And Lawrence was excellent there, really sparky, kept going all the way through the game, and as we said, influenced the game more as it went on. I would say bleak times ahead for Tuilagi. Obviously his future at Sale beyond the summer is uncertain too, so we'll see how that shapes up. Sanderson did say that he's confident that Tuilagi will repay him, so we'll see how that goes.
There were a few games gone soft tweets from that Manu Tuilagi red card on Saturday.
Red card. There always has been red cards.
It's been a red card in rugby for forever. That sort of manoeuvre, I would say. It looked very, very bad. It looked suspicious at the time, and on review, it looked really bad. Some of
those ones where the fending can look terrible when the timing's out. And Lucan Salakai Lotto was sent off in the last time I was at Franklin's Gardens, actually, at the end of the game against La Rochelle. Basically exactly the same happened. He was sort of trying to fend, having just broken one tackle, trying to fend another defender coming across, and the timing was wrong, and his forearm went into another player's jaw. And when the decisions are being largely not totally, but largely based on outcome, it's only going to be one kind of thing happening. And as I say, Tuilagi saw one replay and sort of knew the game was up.
It was the active launching, wasn't it? It was the sort of active launch that was done for him. I mean, I have no doubt that Manu Tuilagi is not a dirty player. I have no doubt that he didn't mean to sort of elbow Tommy Freeman in the Adam's apple, but it was very clumsy and very reckless, and ill judged, and it deserved a red card every day of the week.
You're right, Charlie. It does seem like he is being phased out slowly by Steve Borthwick. It's probably one for the old disciplinary hearing roulette fans, actually, because I know he's had. I was just checking his previous suspensions. His last one was for that no-arms tackle on George North in 2020, for which he got 4 weeks. He's obviously got the 10-weeker on his record for punching Chris Ashton, but that's something very different and very long ago. I sort of wonder whether he could be your standard 3, could be 4. Could be 5. I mean,
Salakai Lotto got 4, I think.
Yeah.
I actually saw him before kickoff, sort of walking around in either doing corporate or just there watching. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. I'm sorry to say, I don't know whether the tackle school will apply, because it's sort of contact area school, isn't it?
That's true. Is that a new
No,
school
no.
that's being set up that we don't know?
New school that's in session. It will be.
New World Rugby development. I mean, in terms of the rest of the squad, the reason that Eddieism was probably in my mind was about forward was also because Laws is back and Tom Curry are back as well, obviously from injuries. So how much do you tinker with that side? Do you try and bring both Laws and Curry back? Do you use Laws off the bench? Do you start Tom Curry? And notice that Ben Curry's not in the squad anymore, which is a fairly brutal turnaround, having started against Scotland a couple of weeks ago. Charles, what do you reckon they'll do with Laws? It does seem like he's definitely a lock now in this England setup, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think both Laws and Curry will be on the bench against France. I think if they're not in the plans
Against
for the
Wales.
match date, sorry, against Wales.
Yeah.
Apologies, against Wales on Saturday. If they're not in the plans for the 23, then why are they in the squad? What's the point in having them there? I think Curry will probably come onto the bench for Ben Earl, who has always looked very enthusiastic and eager off the bench, but maybe hasn't quite achieved as much as he would have liked off the bench. I think that's fair to say. And I think Laws will come onto the bench for Ezekwe, and he'll want to try and keep Itoje and Chesham together because they've been going very well. And then the back row, well, the two flankers, Willis and Ludlam, along with Chesham, have probably been England's three standout forwards, really. So, and Laws hasn't played barely at all for Northampton. We know that he's class and that he can turn it on in the click of a fingers, the same as Tom Curry, but it's just a different step up from the Premiership to international. And I think just easing them back in, maybe with a view to reintroducing them into the starting 15 for France and Ireland if they go well off the bench, might be the more sensible option there.
Yeah, I think you're right. You'd feel desperately for Lewis Ludlam, actually, if he was the one who made way, because that happened in last year's Six Nations after he played really well against Scotland at Murrayfield, and there weren't many England players that played great that day. And he's been brilliant in this Six Nations as well, hasn't he, so far? I just fear that he eventually might be the one that makes way.
I fear less for him, actually, just because he's had a little bit of time. Two reasons. He's had a bit of time at 8 at the end of the Italy game. So he's clearly either willing to have a look at him from the start or during a game there. And he's been so prominent in the line-out, so that obviously balances out anything they're going to do there. Say Laws came in for Johnny Hill officially, so that would seem to sort of seal that he's being looked at as a lock. I just wonder whether Don Brandt might be the one under a little bit of pressure too there, because as we sort of trailed on this podcast, didn't we, last week? I think Borthwick will be intrigued about a Curry-Willis tandem in the back row, and he likes that 4/6 on the bench with Ezekwe. I think I agree with Charles. I think Laws suits that quite well, and his energy would hopefully for England solve those kind of slow finishes that they've been having.